Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy Podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Meno today, and we are wondering about Socrates' statement that learning is actually remembering. So, to recap, Socrates has demonstrated the dialectic several times for us, told us that it's the gentle way of relating to friends. And so that's our key. That's something that we can use to unlock the text. There's a phrase that I heard mentioned on the Majority Report yesterday, Roman a clef. I don't know if that fits here, but it means novel with a key. It's a fancy French word. My French pronunciation is not very French. But this applies to what we're reading. We have been given a key. The key that we've been given by Socrates is something called the art of the dialectic. So when Meno, one of the counterattacks that Meno had to the dialogue, where he pretended to not know what color is as a way of sabotaging the argument, Socrates called that sort of a person. We call them debate bros or scammers or right-wing grifters is another name we use it. Socrates uses the expression heuristic and antagonistic kind, people who claim to be wise. So this is the majority of the experts in our current society, people who claim to be wise about various things, use words in a heuristic, which means using words to debate or win arguments or fight, love of contention, and antagonistic. So to those people, I would be more stern and say it's your job to take up the logos and refute my positions. You can't just say, well, I disagree. But if you are a friend, which is who we really want to be talking to and creating the conditions for as well, then we talk in the dialectical way, the way of the dialectician, the more gentle way. This is the art that we are learning, the art of the dialectician. So that's our key, and we've looked at the dialectic, and we see that there are 4 parts: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion. Well, if this is the key, then we want to use it in our reading. So we are on the hunt for virtue. And along the way, we are also on the hunt for other things, like what is learning? What is real being? And of course, can virtue be taught? So to ask the question of the opening sentence, can virtue be taught? We need to know what learning is. We need to know what virtue is, so we can put them together. So when we are looking for those 2 things, we need to use the dialectic. That's our key. In other words, can we pull out the key terms and statements made about these subjects so we can build a definition? But also, can we see the way that learning and virtue is being demonstrated by Socrates in the text? Or, on a higher level, by the text itself. Is the text demonstrating learning? Is the text demonstrating virtue? Can we demonstrate this? Are we going through a process where we can be a demonstration? Now, that would be also division. Can we see this definition and demonstration everywhere? In our reading, in the text, in how Socrates is relating to Meno, in each paragraph even. That's our key to unlocking this text. Okay, so let's jump in. So Meno, so that review of when Socrates gave us the key was when Meno had one of his counterattacks. He asked for a demonstration of how we understand something, how we define something. And Socrates gave an example about shape. and he used the term color, and Meno at the end of it crossed his arms and said, well, what if I don't know what color means? Then your explanation, your demonstration is garbage. Garbage, Socrates. What would you do if somebody said that, Socrates? So that was when Socrates said, well, if you are a heuristic and antagonistic kind of person who claims to be wise, I would relate to you in one way. But if you are a true friend, an actual friend, I would relate to you in this way. So one of the questions we have is, what does it mean to be a friend? How is Meno being a friend? How is Socrates being a friend? Is Socrates creating the conditions to invite Meno to play in a new kind of way that he's not used to? That's an invitation to true friendship. How can we be true friends? To ourselves? To our friends? To our loved ones? How can we be true friends? So, that was a counterattack we can recognize by Meno, which is a counterattack to the logos, to learning. So we can add that to our question. Well, if virtue has to be learnt, how do counterattacks play in? Do we have to recognize and deal with counterattacks to be able to learn? Is that a necessary part of learning virtue? So that was one counterattack, and we are at another where Meno says, well, I don't want to learn about virtue because what's the point? Why learn anything? Because if you already know it, you wouldn't need to search. But if you don't know it, how can you search for something you don't know? If I said, find me a slobbernaut, what would you do? You don't know what that is. I made it up. So how could you, what's the point of going on that search if you don't even know what it is? Now Socrates said, well, that's a, here we go. Heuristics, there's that word heuristics again. The use of language to be a debate bro. Which is of course what we see on the media, in our media, and many people who claim to be authorities, their claim to wisdom is that they can argue you down or shoot you down, or they have the power and the money to make you shut up and agree with them. The use of debate, really. Use of language to attack and win arguments. And in response to that, Socrates says, I've actually met people who were actually wise, both men and women. What made them wise is they knew the divine realities, what we call the realm of being, and they have the logos about it. So that's what we've been seeing all the way through Socrates, the text that we read of Socrates. Understanding the logos and experiencing the realities. Nous and dianoia. Or dianoia, the understanding of the realm of being, and nous, the actual checking it out. What do people who have that talk about? Truth and beauty. What an interesting way of summarizing the realm of being. And if you can pay careful attention to what you're experiencing and to the people you're talking to, you can deliver the logos in a way that can benefit the people that you are administering over. So there's this idea of management or authority or rulership, which requires both nous and dianoia, so that you can benefit. Hi, welcome to the chat. What do they say? What do the wise people who have nous, direct experience of the realm of being, and dianoia, an understanding of it? They say that our soul is immortal and we never really die, although our life does end, which is why we have to live our life according to what the gods seek, the virtue of piety. Do you seek the same thing that the gods seek? In other words, if you were immortal, what would you do with your time? Would you be chasing fame and money? Being a lover of fame and honor? Socrates calls that philotimos, lover of honor, or philokrimatos, lover of money, wealth? Or would you be a philomathesis, lover of learning? If you recognized you were one of the gods, if you recognized your soul was also eternal. That's the virtue of piety, holiness. Socrates gives us a quote from Pindar, I think. Yeah, Pindar. In the 9th year, Persephone sends souls who she receives because they have purified their ancient grief. Now, we recognize the ancient grief as the pathologos. So they've used their mastery of the dialectic to purify their false beliefs about self and reality. Then you can be led back into the higher dimensions, the sun above. So, Socrates is telling us something about our purpose here. Not only is it not chasing wealth and fame, philosomatos, love of soggy tomatoes, physical wealth, and philotimos, lover of being as famous as Tim. If you know someone famous named Tim, you can remember Philotimos. But a kind of learning that involves purifying what's false. What are you carrying that's false about the realm of reality, being, and yourself? Oh, in the chat. What is non-existence and existence? Is non-existence a mental construct? So we are interested here in understanding the level of existence, because our physical world doesn't exist. It's in change. We call it the realm of becoming. Everything you see in the physical world is in change. It's either growing or decaying. So we call it the realm of becoming. But what Socrates is pointing to is, hey, that's all well and good. But if you really want to understand the truth and beauty, you have to be like the actually wise men, and they know the level of existence, that which exists eternally and immortally. And so if the physical world is the world of becoming, we call the realm of pure existence the realm of being. It's always there, which means it's always accessible to those who have a mind open and receptive to it, which must be part of our learning, which might be why he's saying, hey, you won't be let into that realm, the sun above, unless you pay the penalty, which is using the dialectic to uncover and understand so you can free yourself from your false beliefs about existence. You can't, at the same time, believe there is no such realm of being and at the same time get there. Those two things are incompatible. You have to sacrifice one. If you want to experience the realm of existence where truth and beauty is and understanding is, then you can't also carry the belief that there is no such thing as truth. There is no such thing as being. Or maybe there is, but myself is inadequate. Myself is not good enough. Myself is not worthy. Maybe Socrates can get there, and these wise men and women who Socrates talked to, but not me. That's a false belief about yourself that will limit you. So if you've done the work, which is what we're learning how to do, it's not work, it's play. It's the funnest game in town and the most meaningful game, the noblest game. Then you can purify yourself from that. You can uncover those false beliefs, get rid of them through understanding. That will allow you to be received into those higher realms of existence, which means you can actually experience it. You don't have to just believe Socrates that there is such a thing as the realm of existence or realm of being. You get there. And the way that we get there is not just purifying what's false, but perfecting our understanding, which is why we read. we have to gain a definition of that. Hey, you want to go to the party? You better learn about the party. Where is this party? Whose house is it at? What's the address? Do you have to bring something to the party? That's why we read. We are gaining a definition. But also, we want to demonstrate it. We want to get there. We want to check out the party. If there's a realm of truth and beauty, then wouldn't you want to go there? Surely you don't want to just hear about it. So, if we do this, we can be let into those realms that are mythologized by the sun above. Obviously, we're not getting led into the real sun, the physical sun, not the real sun, the physical sun. It's a metaphor for the higher levels above. And those who do that would be noble kings and great men who are strong and agile and able to get wisdom. You're more likely to get wisdom if you have removed your false beliefs that you are not good enough, or that there is no realm of being that you can know, because Socrates says, hey, these people are wise because they know the divine reality. It's going to be much easier. You're going to be more strong. So the false beliefs about yourself that say, oh, I can't reach the realm of reality, I'm just stupid. That's going to take away your strength, your energy, your power, and having a false belief that, well, maybe there is no such thing, that's going to make it more difficult to get there. So if you'll be more agile if you are free from that. So you have more strength and agility to reach wisdom. And if you do that, you will be divine heroes, what we call the paradigm, the model of what it means to be a true hero. So we have many stories about the hero's journey, Harry Potter and Luke Skywalker and all of the people that we like to read about who go on a journey to become a hero, leave behind their first home, step outside of their old familiar world, learn new things, learn a new magical skill that will afford them new power, new strength and agility, gain a new ability. What we are gaining is wisdom. That's the hero's journey. And Socrates is saying, hey, the true hero is one who's able to do this, which is great for us because that's what we're doing. Therefore, the soul is immortal, born many times, and therefore she has seen all things here and there in the realm of being, Hades, or the invisible realm. Therefore, there is nothing that our soul has not learned. So, it's not at all surprising that we, our soul, is able to remember whatever we knew before, both about virtue and all the other beings. So about virtue, and he's mentioned truth, he's mentioned beauty, he's mentioned piety, holiness, being as a god. For inasmuch as the whole of nature being, and the word is innate or inborn within us, therefore, so the whole of nature, the whole of the realm of being is already within us, which is fascinating. You have the whole of being already innately within you. Therefore, the soul has learned everything. Nothing would prevent us by remembering only one. Surely what I mean, that which human beings call learning. To recover everything else from self. So we talked about purifying ourselves from our false beliefs about ourself being not good enough. Well, here's a good reason to do that. Socrates is saying, hey, everything you learn is from self. So not only are you not inadequate, you have everything. You are the cause of everything. Everything that you will learn, the whole of the realm of nature, and nature is not just the physical world, but the realm of being, the true natural world, is already in you, from self. So our all learning is to recover from the self. And if you are courageous and virile, it's a strange word, it means if you have courage and you do not tire of searching, then you can do this recovery, this remembering. For accordingly, the whole of searching and learning is recollection. then one must not be persuaded by debate bros, people who claim to be wise, people who argue, people who claim to be authorities. Don't listen to them and their heuristic logos, debate language, shutting down the logos language. Don't listen to that, because that will make you idle. Oh, and plus, one of the techniques they use to make them sound convincing is they will appeal to what's pleasant. Hey, if there's no realm of being, then why read Socrates? Do whatever. Hey, why do we stop being unjust? Why stop exploiting people? Wouldn't it be more pleasant to hear that there is no soul, there is no reincarnation, there is no consequence to how we live? Wouldn't that be pleasant to hear, especially if you're rich and powerful? Socrates saying, don't buy into that garbage. It's heuristic logos that just appeals because it's pleasant to hear and it'll make you idle. Interesting. And of course, we can understand that. We talk about the griftosphere, how a lot of people who claim to be wise are just people who can use heuristic logos to convince people of their own opinions, but really what they're doing is they're trying to tap into the opinions people already hold. So a lot of people become audience locked. A lot of people start by saying, I hate Donald Trump, he's a Nazi, he's a Hitler. But then they realize their audience who give them money like Donald Trump, and then they'll say, oh, maybe he's okay. Maybe the problem is the extreme left. And just create an imaginary idea to vilify anything that opposes the beliefs of their audience. Why? It's easy. It makes you idle. It's pleasant to hear. Those who are, the word is cowardly, faint-hearted, weak, soft, cowardly. Those sorts of people are not interested in seeking the truth, which is just a remembering what you have in your soul already, because the whole of nature is within, is of your nature, is inborn, and everything you learn is a recovery from the self, so we better figure out what the heck the self is. That's a big question. That's the game we're here to play. That's why we master the logos and the dialectic and purify our false beliefs. But that takes courage. Why? Because there aren't a lot of people doing that right now. And most people are cowardly. They would rather be idle and just do what they've always done and find beliefs that are pleasant for them to hear. They will find grifters who, or news networks, or pundits, or teachers that just reflect the same beliefs they already, or church that just reflect the same beliefs they already have, making them idle, making them, allowing them to be soft and cowardly and not become courageous and virile in seeking the truth and the courage needed to sacrifice the things that you dearly love. You dearly love these false beliefs about yourself and reality. It's what, as we learn from philosophical midwifery, that's what gave you a role in your family. That's what gave you acceptance within the family. It's your idea of love, a sick idea of love, to sacrifice what's true, to sacrifice truth, beauty, virtue, true divine hero-ness, and your own excellence. Sacrifice all of that. That's what your idea of love is. All human beings, because that's the nature of the pathologos. It ain't personal. But it takes courage to recognize that. Hey, it takes courage to recognize that even me. It's easy to see with other people because it's easy to see the crazy ways that other families act. Because they're not your family. But it takes courage to recognize, well, if it's easy to see in others, then what's my one that I can't see? Because my friends can't see it. Those people who live over in that country can't see it. The people in that cult can't see it. Socrates says, don't be like that. Don't buy into it. Don't buy into the grift. And also, don't become one of those grifters who become audience locked and just repeat the same beliefs that everyone has, that, con artists we call them, or audience locked grifters. Instead, if you have the courage, then you will be following the logos. The logos is what we follow to purify our false beliefs, the ancient grief. Now, this word is also problem. The ancient problem that we are carrying, that's the path of logos. And purify ourselves. Well, and so that if that's purification, then the perfection or learning, Socrates is saying, that's a recollection from self. So it's very interesting. Everything that we are here to learn, if we are courageous, is from ourself. So it's ourself returning to ourself, which is fascinating. See how it's sort of like a circle. So if we do this and follow the logos, we will get energetic, we will become inquisitive. So what might start with courage, which is a kind of a discipline and a habit, can turn into true energy and true curiosity. So stay in the game and awaken this and embrace it. Recognize it, look out for it. Oh, I seem to have more energy when I'm talking philosophy. I seem to be more open-minded and curious when I'm reading this book or watching this podcast. Recognize it, hold on to it, blow it up. And enlarge it, I mean. So, we have to trust that's true while we inquire. So we need this as a starting point. In other words, if you are cowardly and soft, you will go along with people who don't know anything. But Socrates has said, hey, you know what? I'm Socrates. And you know who I listen to? These wise people. And these people are able to speak about truth and beauty. So maybe Socrates recognizes the nature of truth and beauty. One of the quotes, the mistranslated quotes attributed to Socrates is, he is wisest in all of Athens because he knows nothing. That's not true. The quote is, I am wisest because I know what is knowable, so I'm not going to be mistaken. Very different. I can't be tricked into thinking I know something which I don't know because I know what knowing is. Big difference. What does that mean? That means there are times in the texts where Socrates says, this is something I know. One of those things is beauty. Another one might be truth. So if Socrates does have an understanding and experience of these things, he's able to recognize these are genuinely wise men, which is probably why he says so. And he says, hey, these are the people I will trust. And you have to. Why? Because you have to begin somewhere. In other words, we talk about going to Tim's house to go to his great party. Well, if you've never been to Tim's house, you have to start by trusting someone who's been there. Yeah, I've been to Tim's party. It's great time. It's a great fun. It's a great fun. It's a fun time. It's a great fun time. And this is how you get there. Now, if you ultimately have to get there yourself, walk that path, and then you will have understanding of how to get there, and you will have experience of the party, but you have to start by trusting someone who's been there before. And Socrates says, this is who I will trust. So, I will continue trusting, so he's been trusting this for a while, that it is true. What is true? That all learning is remembering from the self within our soul, which is eternal and immortal, and therefore has seen everything in this physical world of becoming and the eternal realm of being, and therefore we're able to recover it and learn it. We're going to trust that as we inquire and go along. So again, it's not a solo quest. We find friends. Find friends who are also seeking this. That's part of why we have this channel. To find friends who we can acquire, to follow the logo, acquire with, to follow along the logos in that gentle art of dialectic to discover what the heck virtue or excellence is. Wow. Meno says, yes, O Socrates, but in what way do you mean this? That we do not learn, but that which we call learning is recollection. Interesting. We do not set. So Meno's way of understanding that is we don't learn. So this is the same model of learning that we have in our current world. They call it the piggy bank model. People are like empty piggy banks, and you send children to school to have the knowledge dropped into them like a piggy bank, and you fill them up and you make them sit still and look straight and remember the answers and repeat them on a test, and you fill them up with learning. Garbage. And of course, thankfully there's been research on this that shows that this is garbage and doesn't do anything, doesn't help anyone, does harm, and at best makes sacrifices many of the children to make the ones that survive cogs within a terrible capitalist machine of their own exploitation and their own slavery. So, even the benefits of this piggy bank model of learning are not actually beneficial. Just maintain the system of mindless subjugation, oppression, and exploitation, which we are currently living in through capitalism. They are saying it's late stage capitalism, so let's hope it's quite late. Well, if that's the case, what's the alternative? This is the alternative. To do what Meno is doing and say that we're not learning in that way, but what we call learning is actually recollection. Let's move this back a little bit. There we go. Can you teach me in what way this has to be? Socrates says, and as I was saying just now, Meno, you are a villain. Calling him a villain. Is this part of virtue? Calling your friends villains? Since now you also ask if I can teach you, when I say there is no teaching but recollection. In order, let's highlight this, you are a villain. You are a villain. Play the villain sting. Since I say there is no teaching but recollection, in order that self may then immediately show me up by contradicting me. No, by Zeus, O Socrates, I meant no harm by this, but I only spoke out of habit. Ooh, interesting. What sort of habit has Meno been practicing? What's habit? A demonstration that we practice as much as we can. So there's demonstration and division. So if he's got a negative habit, we can say, well, habit, that's division. Comes from a way of being, demonstration, which must come from a false belief about learning, definition. So we can use this key, the dialectic, to trace Meno's problem back to its source. But if you can somehow demonstrate, here we go, the word demonstration comes in here. We were just talking about that. Then it has to be just as you say. Then show me. So if you can demonstrate that it has to be as you say, learning is recollection, then please show me. But on the one hand, it is no easy matter, says Socrates, but nevertheless, I want to make the effort for your sake. Here again, we have the idea of acting for someone's sake or benefit. So the keys, we are defining virtue, but we're also seeing it being demonstrated. Is acting for someone's benefit part of virtue? Is that what it means to have a mastery of the logos and dialectic? to have recalled and understood? This goes into our question sack. Okay, I'll make the effort for your sake, for your benefit. Summon for me one among those of your many attendants, whoever you wish, in order that I may demonstrate the process for you in this attendant. It's a good thing we've recognized the significance of the dialectic as the key, because the word demonstration has been thrown around heaps. So, Meno's got a bunch of attendants. Interesting. What does that mean? Considering we have been talking about trusting wise people, not being a slave to heuristic people who don't know anything and shut down the logos. Socrates leading the conversation. These wise people administering to people their wisdom to benefit them. So this idea of who is leading. And if Meno has that fundamental false belief about what learning is and what virtue is, obviously, then what would it mean to be his attendant? He's rich and powerful from a rich family. So he has attendants, many attendants. What can we say about Meno's functioning for their benefit if not only he lacks virtue, but he thinks he knows what virtue is? He thinks he knows what it is. He thinks he's given many speeches about it. He got pissed off when Socrates showed him he doesn't know, because he still thinks his speeches were good. So he has false beliefs that are harmful. We already know that they're sexist and it involves harming enemies. So what would it mean to be a slave to him or an attendant to him, to be under his mastery? We can wonder about that. So Socrates is going to show something else. He's going to demonstrate something else. What would it be? What would it be to be a true virtuous, perhaps, master, leader? Most certainly, Meno says, "Come here." So he calls over someone. First of all, is he a Hellene, and does he speak the Hellenic language? Very much so. He was indeed born in my home. Interesting. What does it mean to Socrates to be a Hellene? We can have that as a question. Then offer up your mind to whatever it seems to you, to whether it seems to you, if he is remembering. So offer up your mind is a funny expression. And the word is noon, which is from the word nous. So offer up the part of your mind that has the capacity to understand truth and beauty and virtue, because these are aspects of true being. Offer up that part of your mind. How do we do that? That's a question. To see whether he is remembering or being taught. So not only is Socrates going to demonstrate what it means to teach this attendant or slave, but he is also teaching Meno at the same time. So we want to wonder, okay, if all learning is recollection, how do we recall the things we want to recall? Like this, if all learning is remembering, wouldn't that be something you want to know for yourself? In other words, don't you want to recall the fact that you know everything? Or everything is within your soul, from self? If that's the case, then how do we ourselves learn what learning is? Socrates is saying, offer up your mind. What does that mean? Because Meno is also learning. We've talked about aporia, being puzzled or stung. Is that offering up your mind? It's certainly the opposite of being certain, which Meno says he used to be. Who knows if he's actually in aporia? Offer up nous. How do we do that? Because we want to learn. So we can wonder about that, because that's what he's saying. I'm going to do this thing. Your job is to offer up your mind. How do we offer up our mind? How does that relate to everything we've been learning? How does offering up nous, or the highest part of our mind, relate to virtue? How does it relate to the dialectic? How does it relate to being stung or aporia? How does it relate to being a friend? How does it relate to following a true leader? Following the logos? How has all that come together in this expression, offer up nous, the highest part of your mind? Very good question. We're going to take that and carry it with us as we read. Offer up nous, the highest part of your mind, to whether it seems to you if he is remembering or being taught by me. Okay. Now we're 18 pages in, and we're coming back finally to Meno's first question: can you teach virtue? We've gone through 18 pages to realize he doesn't even know what virtue is, but he's given us a bunch of clues about virtue and how to reach it. Now we're going from there to the second part of the question: what is learning? Okay, let's jump in. The demonstration of recollection. Socrates drawing on the ground. Then tell me, O son, do you recognize that a space like this is a square? I do indeed, says boy. Therefore, is a square space that has 4 lines that are all equal? Quite so indeed. Are not these lines that it has through the middle also equal? So these are the lines drawn through the middle. Yes. That we see on the picture here. Is it not so then that such a space may be both larger and smaller? Oh, okay. Can you make a bigger square or a smaller square? And yes. Is it not so then that such a space may be... Yes. Therefore, if this side were 2 feet and this one 2 feet, how many feet would it be? Consider it in this way then. If this side was 2 feet and this side was only 1 foot, then the other space would be once 2 feet. 1 times 2 feet. Okay? Let's put it on the board. If you got a square, that's... Whoops. So if he says this is 1 feet, and this is 2 feet, then it would be once times 2 feet. 1 times 2. That would be the size of the square. Rectangle. Yes, but since this side and the other side are 2 feet, does this space also become twice 2 feet? So, two feet times 2 feet 2 times 2. Twice 2 feet. And we can see 1 times 2 equals 2. 1 and 2. You can see that there. Equals 2. Equals 4. 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 feet. It becomes. Accordingly then, it becomes twice 2 feet. Yes. Therefore, how many are twice the 2 feet? Count and tell me. Boy, that's me right now. 4, Socrates, because I counted all 4. Then could there not be another space that is double the size of this one? Then could such a space have all the lines equal, just like this one? Double the size of this one, with all the lines equal. Let's do it. Whoa, let's move this guy down. Let's move it over here. Let's double that. Double this would be like this. So doubling 2 is 4. Because he says all sides equal. So if we just doubled that first one, we wouldn't have equal sides. We would have like this. That wouldn't have the sides equal. That would be 2 and that would be 4. 2 on the top, 4 on the side. So he doesn't mean that. If he's saying all sides have to be equal, he probably means this. So now there's 4 feet and 4 feet, which would be 4 times 4, and that equals 16. Let's count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 feet. So is there a space that is double the size of this one? And could such a space have all the lines equal, just like this one? Yes. How many feet? 8. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. One of us is wrong. Let's see what Socrates says. Come along then. Try and tell me how long each line of that space will be. For if on the one hand, this line is 2 feet, what will the length of that which is double? It is clear, Socrates, it would be double. Okay, so if you're doubling 2, what would that be? Double. What? So he says double the length. Observe, Meno, that I teach nothing to this boy, but that I ask everything, and now he thinks that he knows that this kind of line it is from which 8-foot space will be formed. Oh, I see what he's doing, I think. Okay, I think what this slave boy is saying is, well, if this is what we have, if this is what we know here, this is boy. What does boy think? Boy thinks, well, if we double this, and we double this, then we will get double this. So if we double the 2 and we double this 2, we will double the 4. There's 4 here. So therefore he thinks 8 feet. He thinks if we double each of the sides, we will end up with double the answer. I think that's what the boy is saying. Just keep reading. And he knows this. He thinks he knows it. He does indeed. Does he know then? Certainly not. Meno recognizes he's wrong. Okay, so the boy thinks he has the answer. He says, hey, if we double the sides, what will we end up with? Double the answer. Does the boy think he knows it? Yes. Does he? No. But does he think that it will be formed from the double? Yes. Surely then, observe as self, who is reflecting? The self. What has he said? Offer up our nous. Where does remembering come from? Within our mind, from the self. Okay, some little things to recognize here. Okay, so his self, because that's the significance of the word self. As self recollects each step in order, okay, that's also significant because it's a dialectic. As that's what we've been learning to do in the dialectic. As it must be remembered, then you tell me, do you say that the double space is formed from the double line? I mean a space like this, not a space that has one line long and another short, but that which is equal in every way, just like this one, but double of this one of 8 feet. So he's saying, hey, when I said double it, we did this a second ago. I didn't mean just double it here, because that would not be a square. I mean double it this way, double it both sides. Then see if it still appears to you that this space will arise from the line that is doubled. It does indeed. What? Then does not this self become doubled if we were to add another such line? Yes. Then from that line there would be 8 foot space, if there are 4 such lines. Then from self let us draw 4 equal lines. Would this be nothing else than what you say, which is the 8 foot space? Yes. Then are there not within self 4 spaces, each of which is equal to this 4 space? Okay, so he still thinks that this answer is 8, but Socrates is saying, hang on a second, you know how we have this box here? Isn't there 4 of them? aren't there 4 of these boxes? Four of these boxes. 1, 2, 3, 4. And the boy says, yes. Therefore, how large has it become? Is it not 4 times such a space? How could it not be? Therefore, that which is 4 times is double? No! How much larger? 4 times as much. So he's seeing that therefore this is 4 times as much. Four times as much. So then, O son, from the line that is doubled, from the line that is doubled, not a double, but a quadruple space is formed. What you say is true. Since 4 times 4 is 16, is it not? Yes. Then from what line does the 8-foot space arise? For it is not this quadrupled line, but this 4-foot space arises from this half line. So the 8 comes from the half line. So the half of that. Half line. That gives us 8. One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The half line gives us 8. The boy says yes. Very well. On the one hand, the 8-foot space does not arise from the line that is doubled, nor from this line that is half of it. Yes. What's he saying? He's saying you don't get 8 from the full line here or the half line if it's a square. if both sides are the same. Only this combination of half and full. So what he thought was right was wrong. Nor will it arise from this line greater than this larger one, nor will it arise from a line smaller. It does appear to me in such a way. So you can't get 8 from a square, even if you make the line smaller or larger. Well said, says Socrates, for you should answer that which appears to be the case for you. So he's helping us learn what is involved in the dialectic. So we're pulling out, okay, there's 2 things happening here at least. There's the teaching Meno what it means to learn by just using simple geometry and using a slave boy who doesn't have an awareness of geometry. But we are not interested in geometry. We've already seen this. We've already seen he has used a geometry example to give a demonstration of the dialectic. But he also gave examples of how we understand virtue in being, how we understand the dialectic in being, even how we understand the paradigm of shape in being. Meno didn't understand any of that. He only liked the colors, physical. So we've already seen that Socrates can operate on many levels. He can talk to people like Meno, who is unaware that there is a realm of being where truth and beauty lies, where understanding points to. All he knows is the world of opinions that we get through our physical senses of the physical world, so he can give examples in that way. Right now, he's doing something similar. He's drawing shapes in the physical world. Now, you could say geometry is kind of in both realms, kind of bridges the gap, because you can draw squares as we are doing, but a true square doesn't exist in the physical world. You can't draw a true square or a true circle. Nor do numbers exist in the physical world. We can see their effects. We can count the number of things, count the number of squares. Nevertheless, while we're learning about what is needed for teaching something every day, like geometry, we know that to us, to the reader, to someone who's really playing the game, someone who's trying to become a true hero and true king, a true holy hero, a divine hero, and a philosopher king, a noble king and a great man, then we need to take everything he is saying about geometry and apply it to what we are interested in. Not that which helps us calculate the size of shapes, but that which helps us access the realm of being, to know truth, beauty, virtue, all of the things we need to know. So what's the equivalent? What's the method? Dialectic. So can we look for key terms in this and apply it to the dialectic? Well, first of all, he's asking questions. That's a key one. And we know questions are key. And now we've been talking about this all the way through our series. Following steps in order. Not teaching anything, but asking. So if you're doing a dialectic, you're not giving the answers. So today we had somebody pop in and ask a question, and hopefully we did our best to not give a direct answer, but point to something that he can go on a quest to discover for himself. Now, if we had a different format, better than chat, we could engage in a dialectic where we would go back and forth. So there's a back and forth of questions that's happening here. How does he start? He starts with what he recognizes. He starts with where he's at. Now we've often talked about this. You start a dialectic by saying, where are you at? Or where are you stuck? Same thing. Where are you at? Do you recognize this as a square? Okay, let's start from here. Then asking questions, step by step. Not giving answers, but asking, which allows the other person to recollect, following steps in order so that they can remember. And now he has another turn. You have to, so we've got questions already. We've got a starting point. We've got steps in order, asking questions. But also there is a rule or a principle for the answerer. The answerer has to answer what appears to them, not what they think the questioner wants to hear, but exactly what do you see? So sometimes we get people in chat who give answers from ChatGPT to questions. Thankfully, we're at this level of ChatGPT where we can recognize some of them. Then I say the same thing. Doesn't matter what ChatGPT has to say, what do you see? You have to answer what appears to be the case for you. Now we can also look at the parts in here and say, hang on a second. He has started by asking questions to create something that he does know. This diagram here, a 2x2 square. And then he asks them a question. What would be double that? Now, the boy didn't go along, so he was stuck. So Socrates stayed at that step. And he didn't say, oh, you're wrong. You get a D. You get a detention. Go to the back of the class. The sorts of things that often happen in education today. But then he'll ask a different question. So we would recognize that as the division step, breaking it down into its divisions. Remember, 4 parts. And then he did 2 things. He said, okay, this is the case. This is what it would be. But also, what isn't the case? We couldn't have 8 if we had a smaller one or a larger one. There is no way of getting 8 if the sides are equal. So, breaking it down to what it is and what it isn't. This is that part here. The 8-foot space does not arise. This is in the division stage what it is and what it isn't. So this is what follows this is what isn't true about it. Does not arise if it's doubled, nor will it arise from a line that is larger. So, or smaller. So there's no way of getting 8. Okay, so what are we doing? We're pulling out the key terms, Apollo, definitions. Your job is to write them down somewhere so that you can organize them for yourself according to a dialectic structure. Why? Well, Socrates says, I don't give you the answers, I ask the questions. Now, for me, I'm kind of in the middle. I recognize that philosophy isn't very common, it's not very well known, it goes against many of our current societal beliefs about what learning is, so I'm helping out. I'm kind of doing it with you, in that I'm helping you guys see what would be involved in doing it yourself. Pulling out the terms, so I'm highlighting some of the key terms that we read together, but also I'm trying my best not to solve all the questions for you, not to solve all the puzzles for you, but point to the paradigm that you can use to solve the puzzles yourself. So take all these key terms and arrange it. Create your own model of what the dialectic is, using this as an analogy, using the key terms we're pulling out. Okay. Now tell me, good, you should answer what appears to be the case for you. Tell the truth, right? Remember Meno said, oh, what if I don't know what color means? Okay, so the part of playing the game is being what we call today a good faith actor. Not a debate bro or a heuristic person or a grifter. Do your best to answer what appears to be for you. Which is easy. Doesn't require much effort, you just tell the truth. Based on what you're seeing. It's not about being right or wrong. Of course, there is that element for the dialectician to guide, of course. Now, tell me, did we not already say that this line was 2 feet, but that one was 4? Yes. Accordingly, then the line of 8 foot space must be larger than this 2 foot line, but less than the 4 foot line. Right? So we've got a kind of conclusion. This 8 foot is between 2 feet lines and the 4 feet lines. So this 8 foot answer is between these two, is what he's saying. Not this, it's not this, it's in between. Then try to explain of what length you say self must be. 3 feet. Alright, so what is he doing? He's asking him a question that would lead him to a principle. Well, if it's in the middle, then shouldn't it be in the middle of size? Now also, Socrates might have predicted he would think this way because he's already said, hey, what happens if you double the sides? Well, you'll double the area. Doubling the sides here would double the area, but it's not. It's the square root. It's the square. It's doubling both sides. So if he already thinks that, then if this is in the middle, this is between here and here, then he is thinking, well, then if 8 is in between here and here, 4 and 16, then probably it's going to be in between in length. It's probably going to be a three feet by 3 feet. Three feet by 3 feet. That's what Meno is thinking. For you know that this one is 2, but this one is 1, and in the same way on the other side you know this one is 2 and this one is 1, and this becomes the space of which you speak. What? Here, let me say that again. If we add half of that to this line, then it would be 3 feet, right? So there's our 3 feet box. Because this one is 2 and this one is 1. Okay. So Socrates is saying, hang on a second. To get this 3 foot box, we take this 2-foot box and add half again, because we've got 2 plus another 1. That's what Socrates is saying. 2 and then half. So if our area is 4, we add half again. So half of that is 2. So we'll have a 6. So Socrates maybe is leading him to the conclusion by asking him questions that would allow him to say, well, yeah, if it's half again, then half again of the area may be 6. Let's see where it goes. So we take that original one and we add half again to make it 3. Yes. So is it not so that if there are 3 feet in this way and 3 feet in that way, then the whole space becomes 3 times 3 feet? So now he's asking a different question. That seems to be accurate. And so it appears. So he's saying, hey, if there are 3 feet here and 3 feet here, would that become 3 times 3? One, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Is that the case? But how many feet must the double be? 8. So in other words, what did you think before? I thought it was 8. Accordingly then, the 8-foot space does not arise from a 3-foot line either. Certainly not. Then what kind of line? Try to tell us precisely. And if you do not wish to use numbers, then show from what kind of line. So, Socrates has asked him questions, following all those principles that I hope that you're pulling out for yourself so you can play. Starting with where you're at, starting with what you know, asking questions, not giving answers, following a step by step, encouraging the person to tell the truth based on what they are seeing, give honest answers. But now he's led him to see what actually we haven't got to the. Have we got the answer? Have we got 16 yet? No, we haven't actually got the answer yet of what double it would be. We haven't got the 16. So what is he doing? He's taking his answer, which is 8, and pushing the implications. So you could say this is the second half of the dialectic. What happens if you have your answer? In other words, this is your answer, show me how it works. Because your answer was 8. The question was, what if we doubled this? Now the right answer we know is 16. 4 times 4 is 16. But he said, well, if you double this, then you double the area, you get 8. Socrates saying, let's see. You don't get 8 here. You don't get 8 here. And even when you have a 3 by 3, you don't get 8. So we are testing the implications of this idea that you have. Is that virtue? Is that part of the dialectic? Now, can we relate this to what we've seen already? Meno gave an answer. I think virtue is harming the people you don't like, being good to your friends, getting away with it, and oppressing women and oppressing slaves, and rich men are the better people. That's what virtue is. Now we pushed the implications and we saw, well, actually that doesn't work. Let's take that definition and run with it. Why? Because the principles that exist in being, beauty, truth, strength, size, apply equally to men and women. So therefore, why wouldn't virtue or excellence, if it is a true thing, also apply to both men and women equally? Which he then goes on to say, I've met wise women as I have wise men. Also, he gave a new definition, desiring beautiful things and being able to get it. That's what excellence is. We pushed the implications of that and saw that where that fell down, we saw that it couldn't work. And so I think what Socrates might be doing is reflecting back to Meno the very things that he has been through, using a lesser example, which is metaphor, using something easy to see to understand something more complicated. All of these things I'm going through with your slave boy, we went through together, but not about squares, about virtue. What kind of line? Try to tell us precisely. It's another element. Precision. Use precision in your words. Is that part of the dialectic? And if you do not wish to use numbers, then show from what kind of line. Okay? Is that part of the dialectic? If they're not familiar with numbers, use a language they are familiar with. We're using analogy as well. But by Zeus, O Socrates, I certainly do not know. Maybe not. Do you in turn have in mind, O Meno, to which point he had already walked along the road of recollection? Okay, did you see how far he was able to follow the logos along the path of recollection? Since on the one hand, at first he did not know any line from which the 8-foot space arose, just as now he does not know yet. But then at that time he thought he knew, self indeed, and boldly answered, as if he knew. And he was not led to think that he was aporia. He was not in aporia, or at a loss, puzzled. Whereas now, he has been led to think he is at aporia, and just as he does not know, and he doesn't know, neither does he think he knows. Okay, so we have a word self here, which means you can unlock levels of meaning because self has those multi-layered levels of meaning. It can mean things in the physical world, like shapes. It can mean the honorific, the realm of being, like beauty itself, virtue itself. And it can mean the ultimate goal we're seeking, the self. Which ties back into what Socrates said about our reincarnation. You can be led up to higher levels of reincarnation, higher levels of reality, if you have sufficiently purified yourself from the ancient problems. What are ancient problems? Pathologos. What are pathologos? False beliefs about reality and the self. So, what's that? That's thinking you know what the self is. That's the cause of the pathologos. You think you know what you are, and that you're not good enough, and that you're rubbish, and that you're just physical, and that you are not the cause of the whole of being, and so on and so on. That's the pathologos. You won't be able to reach those higher levels of meaning and of existence unless you have purified yourself from those false beliefs. You can't simultaneously think that you're just a physical thing if The experience of the realm of being is the experience of the self. You can't be the whole of all being if you don't think you are the whole of all being. Or if you are certain you think you know that you're not. You can't be certain in your ignorance, and also you can't be certain that Tim doesn't live in a house and still go to Tim's house party. If you think you know that Tim is made up or Tim is homeless, you can't go to Tim's house party. So that's what he's been talking about, being invited up or led up to the higher levels of reality from, who was it? Persephone. So this is all the significance of the word self. And as Persephone says, purifying yourself from your false beliefs about self. Now, what he's showing is he thought he knew self. Okay, levels, right? For the boy, it's the area of a square. For Meno, what does he think he knows? Virtue, which is in being. And for us, the self. Our ultimate goal is to know the self. What's the thing? What are you? What's the thing doing all this? And as Socrates says, hey, if everything is remembering, because we have the whole of all being within us, that all comes from self. So the cause of being is the self. Which goes back to the question that Socrates gave us a few pages back, which is if virtue is not just the parts of being, because all of these things like virtue, like justice and stuff, justice, piety, courage, these are all aspects of being. Therefore, if virtue is all of them, we have to know the whole of being. How can you know the whole of being? Which is virtue if you don't know the self. So he's saying, hey, while Meno might be seeking the realm of being, you guys right here watching this podcast, your goal is to know the self. Otherwise, how can you know the whole of being? By the way, you have the whole of nature or the whole of being within you because it's from the self. So these are the clues that we are unpacking for the real question, the higher question. So you need the whole, which is recollecting from the self. So what does that mean? If you think you know what the self is, you're going to be stuck. Why? Your goal is to recall the whole of being, virtue. And you can only do that by knowing the self or recognizing the self. How can you go on a quest through the logos, through the dialectic to know the self if you already think you know what you are? I know what I am. I learnt it from the school of hard knocks. My daddy told me I was this, and my mummy told me this, and my teacher told me this, and my society told me this, and my partner tells me this. Just like Meno, all of the things that Socrates picked out. This is your family, this is your partner, this is your society, this is your teacher. And by the way, this is your idea of knowledge. What is it? Confidently asserting you know things you don't. Isn't that our idea of what it means to be wise currently in our world? Yes. Confidently assert that you know things you don't. Because why? Because it's all opinion. No one knows really, right? Wrong. So this is the thing. He boldly answered as if he knew. Why did Socrates throw that in? He boldly answered. He wasn't that bold. You know who was bold? Meno. You know who is still bold? Meno. He still thinks he knows virtue. He's still very proud of his ability to give speeches and convince people. Right? Know anyone like that? By the way, how are you like that? When are you having your Meno moments? Your Meno moments are when you boldly and confidently assert, I know what I am this sort of a person, I am rubbish, I am not good enough, I am blah 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 blah. I know my problem, I know myself. Do you? That's going to be a block. Persephone won't let you anywhere if you have that attitude. Not only that, you won't be in the state of mind to open your mind. Open the highest part of your mind. Offer up the highest part of your mind. How do you do that? Being aporia. Puzzled, at a loss, stung. Can you be stung if you think you know it? No. So, boldly and confidently asserting you know, just like Meno and people like Meno, just like us, when we think we know about reality or we think we know about ourselves. Hey, if your idea of self doesn't contain being the higher dimension even of the whole of being, if it doesn't contain being the source of all of nature all at once, if it doesn't involve being immortal and eternal, if it doesn't involve going through reincarnation, if it doesn't involve an intelligibility and knowability at some level, high level, then you're wrong. And if you think you know better, you won't be able to take up this quest. You won't be able to offer up the nous part of your mind. You won't be able to engage in this dialogue. You'll be like Meno, shutting down the argument, shutting down the conversation, shutting down the dialectic wherever you can in all the different ways that Meno's been doing it. And Socrates is saying, hey, he boldly asserted, just like you, just like we do when we boldly assert what we are, what we think reality is. Boldly asserted he knew. Knew what? Self. That's the key. That's our, what was our word of the day today? Romane Clef. A story that has a hidden key to unlock its deeper meaning. Now, I don't know if that fits. I heard it on the Majority Report yesterday. But this is the key. One of the keys is the word self. Recognizing it has layers. And one layer is for Meno, one layer is for Socrates, and one layer is for us. And or maybe even another layer that maybe this boy can represent all three of them. If he thought he knew self, he boldly answered as if he knew. He was not led to be in that state of mind, aporia. He was not puzzled, he was not stung, which is a bad thing, which tells us more about virtue. Socrates said earlier, hey, if you're angry at me for stinging you, making you in a state of aporia, I don't do it because I know all the answers. I do it because I'm even more puzzled. Hey, not just puzzled, self-puzzled. Which is that key word. Puzzled about things in the physical world, puzzled about being, puzzled about the self. The highest level of state of mind of aporia. I am numb myself in that way, puzzled. But nevertheless, I'm willing to consider and search along with you. This is the phrase he keeps repeating. Even though I don't know, even though I'm puzzled, I'm willing to follow the Logos with you. Which is his mantra. He keeps saying it. It's his conclusion time and time again. Hey, let's address the counterattack. Let's become puzzled once again. And once we're puzzled, what can we do? Enter into the true dialogue, the dialectic. The art we're here to learn. Oh, and by the way, he already mentioned this idea of virtue, being able to get the things that you think are good. What if you get them by an unjust way? Therefore, not having them can be virtue. The not having of gold or silver, this aporia, again, self has 3 levels, gold and silver in the physical world, knowing being, knowing virtue, knowing truth, knowing beauty, and the self, being at a loss, is also self-virtue. The state of mind of being stung and open is also self-virtue. So, self-virtue being stung, this boy wasn't stung. He confidently and boldly asserted he knew that doubling the sides of a 2x2 square gives you an area of 8. But through these questions, he was led to realize that he didn't know. Didn't know what? Self. That's our message to us, the reader. Unpack it, solve the mystery. Which brings him into a state. This is the state of mind that we want to. So we know that, or we're learning that following the logos, following the dialectic, is a process of recollection, has a method, has a paradigm, also is the process of understanding, also is a process of defining, also is if it unlocks if it allows us to remove what is false, also is the spiritual method, because Persephone lets us into the sun, to the higher dimensions. So all of that is a dialectic following the logos, but to do so we have to recognize we don't know the self, number one, or the subject, both. So we are in a state of mind of aporia, so we can offer up the highest part of our mind in that conversation. While we follow the pattern that we are pulling out, asking questions, starting from where you're at, using a language you're familiar with. Not giving answers but asking questions only, encouraging the person to just answer truthfully, taking their answer and pushing the implications to its conclusion to see that it's not true, to purify yourself from false beliefs, and to lead you to recognize you don't know, which puts you in a state of aporia, which is the state of mind we need to be in to follow this path, to follow the logos, to be on the true quest, the quest of the true divine hero, that will lead us to be great kings and great men. And it's that path with that state of mind that we need to be courageous, virile to follow. And if we have courage to keep following it, even though it's more pleasant to hear that it's not possible, it's more familiar, that's cowardice to listen to that Euristicon logon, bollocks language. Even though it's more pleasant, more familiar, more comfortable, it's cowardice. Don't listen to that. Have the courage to follow the logos, learn the dialectic, master it as an art, recognize you're oblivious, you don't know about self, embrace that confusion and puzzlement, because that's the state of mind we need to be to follow this path. The true quest, the quest of the true hero. And if we do that, we are learning, which is nothing other than recalling. Because if we are the self, then the whole of nature, the whole of being is from self, which is innate. We have the whole of being innate within us. Our job is to have the courage to follow this quest, and if we do, it will awaken energy, and it will awaken more curiosity, awaken energy and inquisitiveness. So, stay on the quest. Pull these pieces out, arrange it into an understanding of the dialectic, follow it, be puzzled. What does Socrates say from here? Would you say he's better now that he's recognized that he doesn't know in regard to that object which he doesn't know? It appears to me he's better. Therefore, by making him puzzled and numb, just as the stingray does, there's our metaphor, have we done him harm? No. since we have indeed prepared him in a certain way, in relation to that which is to be discovered. In relation to what way? The way that which has to be discovered has to be. For now he will search, and do so gladly, since he does not know. Whereas at that time he thought he could go before large audiences, and on numerous occasions, and speak well and with ease about the double space and how it must arise from the line, whose length is doubled. Who does this remind you of? Meno. And the people who claim to know in our society today. They think they know the self. They have large audiences. They speak on many occasions with ease. They are not in a state of aporia about the self and the subject that they are wondering about. Who else does it sound like? Who do you know speaks before large audiences on numerous occasions about things they don't know about, with certainty as though they knew, not in a state of aporia, not doing the dialectic, not following the logos? Therefore, Meno agrees, reasonably so. Therefore, do you think he would have tried to seek or learn that from which he thought he knew, but did not know, before he fell into a puzzled state? There's our aporia again. And until he was led to think he did not know, and he was longing to know. So we awaken a longingness. To realize you don't know can awaken a desire or longingness to know. It appears to me to be so, Socrates. According then, he is, keyword, benefited by the numbing. This is the keyword that keeps creeping in. Keyword, benefit. What role does benefit play in virtue? What role does benefit play in the dialectic and the art? How often does Socrates say, I'm doing it for your sake and my own? Benefit. And what benefits us? The numbing. It appears to me that's a nice way of concluding. Do we see that he is benefited? Would Meno be benefited? Would people that we might talk to who claim to be experts be benefited by following the dialectic step by step together in a friendly way, using a language that they are familiar with, starting from where they're at, pushing the implications of their false belief to see where it goes, to lead them to discover they don't know that which they don't think they knew, to become puzzled and numb, which might awaken a longingness to know? Would they be benefited? And ourselves? How well do we think we know ourselves? How well do our parents say, oh, I know you better than yourselves, or I know what you're like, or teachers or other people, oh, I know you. Do they? No. They're ignorant like Meno. Do we? Oh, likely not. At one level we know because it's all within us, but we don't think. The thing that we think, the false beliefs, which goes back to our earlier discussion. We can be tricked through beliefs to think that the bad is good, to think that the false is true, and therefore we will seek that which is harmful to us. The thing that we think about ourselves, our limited view of self, or our limited or inadequate view of ourselves, do we think we know it? Absolutely we do. Does it harm us? Yes. Is it truth? Nope. It's a belief that we've been led to believe from childhood that we have to purify ourselves from. That's why we do midwifery. But recognizing that you don't know the self, will it make you puzzled? Recognizing you fundamentally don't know the self. You don't know virtue or being or truth or beauty. That's the level of being, the middle level. But above that, you don't know the self. What would that do to you? Would it make you stung? Would it make you long to discover the self? Will it stop you from playing out the implications of that false view of yourself, blocking yourself, limiting yourself, passing that belief, speaking in front of large audiences confidently? You all are sinners. You all are inadequate. You're all going to hell. Stop you from acting unjustly and harming people? If you realize you don't know, but became puzzled by that fact, would it give you a longingness to know? And would that ultimately benefit you? And how can we take that state of being stung or numb or puzzled or aporia, how can we take that with us as we follow the logos of this while looking for the dialectic structure and wondering how we can be benefited by mastering this art? Thank you so much for joining me. Thank you for the new chatters. Thank you for your questions. And I hope to see you next time. Keep following the logos while being as numb and stung as you can. Bye.